Hello everyone, my name is Chloe and today I'm here with a brand new video. I'm back. I wasn't really gone for long. It was only a week. I had to take a little bit of a break last week. I actually had to have my wisdom teeth taken out, all 4 of them, and it was a process. Both of my bottom ones were completely horizontal. This top one was starting to become horizontal, and this was the only normal one. I had to wait 2 weeks to get a consult with an oral surgeon, and then the very next day after the consult, I went and had the surgery. I cried a lot. Even though I have tattoos and I don't mind like needles in that sense, I hate getting shots. I've never had to have an IV before. I've never been like out for a surgery. I've never been under anesthesia. I've only ever been under a local anesthetic when I had my fillings done. Never had to do something like this before, and I was fucking terrified. It's been exactly a week since I had the surgery, but enough of the swelling has gone down that I can film, I can talk to you guys, it's not super painful, I'm off my antibiotics, I'm not having ice on my face all day, we're here. So today we're talking about everything that I read in the month of July. I don't even know how much I read in the month of July, let me count real quick. I have read 18 items in the month of July. Some of these things feel like I read them so long ago, but it was only a couple of weeks ago. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump right in. So about half these things I read in either like an ebook format or from the library, so I don't have them. So you're gonna see a lot of pictures on the screen. And then the other half is stuff that I have. I normally like to go in order of how I read them. I'm gonna do what I did last month and kind of go out of order and like group things by series and such. So let's go ahead and get started. I read a whole trilogy this month that I have heard for years is something that I should read because I really like the selection. So the first book I completed this month was The Jewel by Amy Ewing, and then I immediately picked up The White Rose and The Black Key, and 2 short stories, which was Garnet's story and then The Royal House of Stone. The Jewel is a dystopian world. We are set in a world where people are separated by class. The women are tested to be surrogates. These women are taken when they're very young, like 11 or 12, and they live in different holding facilities. And then when they turn, I believe, 17, they are sent and auctioned off to royalty. It is not the same thing as the selection. I don't want selection fans to go into it thinking that it is, but you can get some elements from it that selection fans I think would enjoy. It's darker than the selection, but it's really interesting, and there's also very, very subtle Hunger Games vibes, I think, spread throughout the trilogy. So if you're a fan of selection, maybe check this one out, but just go into it knowing that it is not the same thing. I gave The Jewel 4.5 stars. I gave both The White Rose and The Black Key 4 stars, and then I gave the 2 short stories 4 stars as well. So next we're going to talk about some graphic novels that I read. Some of you guys may know that in June I started reading the Lumberjanes graphic novel series, and I ended up finishing, or at least getting caught up on the volumes that have been released up until this point. So I read volumes 13 through 18. I feel like I enjoyed this series more in the beginning than I am as it's ending. But they are fun little stories to read. There is still one more volume that hasn't been released yet, so hopefully I'm going to read that when it comes out next month. But I've been enjoying the series for the most part. One more graphic novel that I read this month was Rick and Morty Ever After by Sam Maggs. This is a 1-volume graphic novel where Rick and Morty from the TV show are kind of thrust into the world of fairy tales. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't really anything special, but it was something that I've been wanting to read because it did come out earlier this year and I am a fan of Rick and Morty. And I thought putting these 2 characters into a fairy tale setting would be really interesting. So I just read it one afternoon and it was good. I enjoyed it. So I also read the next book in a series that I've slowly been working on between last month and this month, and that was The Epidemic by Suzanne Young. This is the 2nd book in the prequel duology to the program. I know that sounds weird, but this is kind of set before the events of the program, but like right at the start of the epidemic. That's probably why it's called The Epidemic. I listened to the audiobook. I think at the time that I read this, I was just really tired of being in this world because I had reread the first 2 books and then listened to the one that was before this one and then immediately went into this. So I was kind of just tired of being in the world. I gave it 3.5 stars. I am still going to finish the series. There's 2 more books that I need to read, but I don't have them and I'm not going to get them from the library because they're not like a priority right now. So I will read those hopefully before the end of this year so I can finish the entire series. So for book club this month, I picked up Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I will link our live show in the description below in case you want to check this out. If you are interested in book club, it is the BookTube Tricks book club that myself as well as Kathleen from For the Love of Books and Desiree from Livery Labra run. And this month we read Malibu Rising. I didn't know what to expect with this book. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it because I liked Daisy Jones, but really the supreme is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This was surprisingly good for me. I know that sounds really weird. I'm not a huge fan of historical fiction, even though that's what Taylor Jenkins Reid has been doing for the past couple of novels that she's released, but I was surprisingly invested in this book, and it was really sad at some points, which is just something that she does in her books, but I gave it 4 stars and I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend the audiobook of her, at least the last 3 of her books, because the narrator is really good and she does voices really well, so I highly recommend listening to the audio for this. But I was pleasantly surprised with this book and I really enjoyed it. So if you want to hear more about Malibu Rising and my thoughts as well as Kathleen and Desiree's, I will link the live show in the description below. So next I read one of my most anticipated releases for 2021, which was The Betrayed by Kira Cass. This is the sequel to The Betrothed, which came out last year. I was so excited for this book because the last one ended on such a cliffhanger. This one picks up right where the last one left off, but I did have issues with this book. I'm such a big Kira Cass fan. I will read literally anything she publishes. I will read her grocery list. I don't care. I love Kira Cass. I love the selection. We all know this. Don't go into this series expecting the selection. I didn't go in expecting that, but I did have high hopes because she came off of such a high with the selection series. I was really intrigued after how the last one ended, and I was really excited, and it's not a bad book. I think that this duology has an audience. I might be part of that audience. I definitely was for the first book. But I think that this went into a direction that I didn't care for as much. Honestly, I also think this book needed like an additional like 50 pages. It's very short, which is fine. Books can be short, but the climactic moment of this book happened way too quickly in my opinion. I feel like it should have been more complicated than what it was. Obviously for characters that we enjoy, we really want, you know, the climax and the resolution to be nice and to wrap up in favor of our favorite characters. But this just happened so quickly, the ending was so quick that I feel like it should have been more complicated than what it was. All of that being said, I am giving this book a 3.5, but it's honestly leaning a bit more towards a 3. I still love Kira Cass. I'm still going to read anything Kira Cass publishes. But this one is on the lower end of what I like. Next, I read another anticipated release, and that was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. And this was such a refreshing read. This is their new release that came out earlier this year. I've been wanting another Christina Lauren that I love so much, and this is honestly probably in like the top 3 favorite ones. My 2 favorites are still In a Holidays and my favorite Half Night Stand. I think In a Holidays is number 1. So this is probably like my 3rd favorite book from them. I did give it 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the romance, the couple, the story. I really liked that. I like how science is involved in this book. This is definitely one I think to check out. I really enjoyed the audiobook for this as well. And I also really love the side character, Fizzy. She was really fun, and I recommend checking this out if you like Christina Lauren, or if you just like adult romance in general. Alright, we have 2 more books to talk about. This next one was a reread. If you watched my books I'd like to reread in 2021 video at the beginning of the year, I'll link it in the description below, but this is one of them, and it was probably the biggest commitment that I would have to do as far as rereads, and that was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. I said that this year I wanted to read the whole series again because I have never done a full read through of the whole series. I have read this book multiple times. This is the 3rd time that I've read it, but I've never reread any of the other ones. So this was the year that I was going to go all in and reread the entire series, including the short stories, including the graphic novels, all of it. So I read Cinder. I finished it in like 2 days. It was so quick to get through. I love this book so much. Honestly, it's probably my favorite of the whole series, but I finally started my reread and I'm so excited. 5 stars. I'm pumped to keep going. And lastly, I read another new release, and that was Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. If you're looking for a quick contemporary read, this is one of them. I didn't know what to expect going into this book. I did read like the synopsis very briefly right before I started, but I didn't really have any expectations. Nicola Yoon has written contemporaries before. She's very good at it. This is her 3rd one, and I was really excited to see what she'd been working on because it has been so long since she published a book. This, what I wasn't expecting was how quick it was, and also for there to be a tad bit of magical realism in it, which I was not expecting, but was really pleasantly surprised with. This book is so fast to get through, so if you've been putting it off and you don't know why, stop putting it off. It's really good. I gave it 4 stars. It's not like my next favorite book, but it was enjoyable. I enjoy Nicola Yoon's work, and I think that this was a fun book to read. I did think some of the storylines kind of got put on the back burner a little bit at some point. I also think the synopsis maybe should be rewritten because a lot of the synopsis focuses on a dance competition, but at some points that dance competition takes a huge step back and you completely forget about it while you're reading it. But definitely check this one out. I'm really glad that this is what Nicola Yoon brought out to us after like a year's long gap, and I was very pleasantly surprised with it. And the last thing that I'm going to talk to you all about is what I'm currently reading, things that I might be trying to finish before the end of the month. Just a little housekeeping stuff. So I'm currently reading 2 things, a physical book and an audiobook, and I'm not putting pressure on myself to finish both of them, but I'm putting pressure on myself to finish one. So the audiobook I am reading is Field Notes on Love by Jennifer E. Smith. Very short, like 8-hour book. I have 2 hours left, I think, so I am trying to finish this one before the end of the month. Check out the description below for my rating because I know I will have finished this before the end of the month. And the other one that I'm reading that I'm about 60% of the way through is Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is my least favorite in the series, but I am still enjoying the reread because I'm picking up on things that I completely forgot about, which was nice, or things that I may not have noticed the first time that I read it, which was years ago, like back in like 2014 or 2015 is when I originally read this book. So that is everything for my July wrap up today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all so much. I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, if you like what you see here, please go ahead and click subscribe. I post new videos every week, so click subscribe so you can be updated for when I post those. Check out my Patreon linked in the description below, and I will see you in my next one. Bye! In the darkness, I don't feel so cold. The ashes fall like rain, and somehow we're okay. My story drifts between shadows and smoke.